I'm going to try and be brief and just share a story with you that happened on January 31st to a good friend of mine who went into a doctor's office. His wife had been persistently telling him, you need to get checked. As Black men, you don't go to the doctor as often. He called up to the office. His regular doctor wasn't available. And so they recommended another doctor. He went to that doctor, and as he walked into the office, the doctor never even looked up to acknowledge him. Asked him a few standardized questions, and then became very condescending to him. At which point, my friend stopped and said, I want you to understand, I'm here because I want you to make sure that I'm okay. And the doctor at that point looked at him for the first time. He had been in the office with the doctor, they're not there that long anyway, but for about 3 minutes. And the doctor had never even established eye contact with him. And he then started talking to him very condescending and had said, look, I don't know why you're all getting upset, and you don't have to be this way. I don't know why it always ends up being like this. And we know that those are code words for what oftentimes people experience when folks are asserting that because a person wants to have a certain treatment that's the same as other people and insist on it, somehow we are now being aggressive. And so my friend left and said, look, this obviously isn't going to work. And, I don't know why you're being so disrespectful to me. Left and started leaving the office. And it was at that point that I think a switch kind of flipped. And the doctor understood what he had done and what he had done wrong, and went after my friend all the way to the elevator and kept apologizing profusely, saying, please come back. I'm really, really sorry. The interesting thing about that story, and he shared this with me, is that there are so many people in our community that have this kind of experience, whether it's dealing with doctors, whether it's dealing with a person that is in a store. You guys know about the thing that happened to me, whether it's a police officer pulling you over. And when we talk about hypertension and stress, when we talk about the things that every day that people have to deal with, the simple things of going to a doctor to get a checkup, something that you pay insurance for, something that you are paying a premium for, and then are denied that just because of the color of your skin. And it's not something that's a nuanced, this is a one-off story, because keep in mind, we had a report that came out with health outcomes at the end of last year that said racism is specifically tied to the effects of Black mothers and their pregnancies, even those that are economically stable, much to the example that Councilmember Jawando said when he highlighted about Serena Williams. Folks, if we can't get this right, if we can't understand that and acknowledge the challenges that still persist, the reasons why folks have hypertension and high blood pressure and all, and they're tied directly to the systemic racism that's in our community. If we can't acknowledge that, we'll never be able to actually address the issues of George Floyd and all of the other things. I agree with Councilmember Jawando wholeheartedly. This is the beginning. This is the first in the many of steps to acknowledge the wrongs that we continue to put on our communities of color. The reality is that when people walk into a doctor's office or to any place and can't speak English, what's the first thing that folks do? Dismiss them. Dismiss them and say, okay, whatever, I can't deal with that right now. Can't you speak English? Can't you get it right? That's where we are right now, right? And so when I think about the stories that my parents told me about them growing up and what they experienced, the reality is that ain't a lot changed. It's still very much the same. In fact, it's a little bit different because back then, folks would actually say it to your face. Now they just say it to others and whisper it. And every now and then they'll say it in your face too. That's changed over the past couple of years. But the reality is that the treatment hasn't changed. The treatment is the thing that has stayed consistent, which is why we have the healthcare disparities, which is why we have all of the challenges that we do in our community, which is why we see the education gaps that we see. It's the reason why we see the economic gaps that we see. They're all attributed. They're all a part of this. So I'm very appreciative of my colleagues who have supported this. I think that, again, I hope for a time in which when I have conversations with my daughters, they tell me, they say, Dad, nobody sees race anymore. That's what they used to say. That's what they used to say. But as of these past couple of weeks, I haven't heard that coming from them anymore. We've now broken the spirit of a generation who actually thought we were on the right track. And that's something real. That's something serious that we have got to acknowledge, because we are actually making progress in terms of children thinking that they lived in a world to where they were accepted and not judged based on what they looked like. And now the articles that my daughter sends me every day of police brutality, of racism, and folks, has completely changed her outlook on society. That's scary. And if we don't do something about it, it again is going to jeopardize the very nature of everything that we fought for in this county, in this state, in this nation, and in this world. It's just that big. It really is. So I really just, again, want to say thank you and know that there's plenty more work to come. Thank you, Mr. President.